It's a great day. My name is Jay Brown, the happy entrepreneur, and welcome to the Happy Entrepreneur Show, the number one business development and revenue focused late night show in the country where we are on a mission. And our mission really is to inspire, our mission is to empower, and our mission is to provide you, the hard working entrepreneur, with all of the resources that are necessary to execute that big vision you have for the people you were called to serve. And on this episode, we have the one and only Casey Harrison, who's in the building. And she'll be talking about marketing and strategic communications. That should be interesting. What's going on, Casey? How are you?
Hello, I'm good. How are you?
Good. You know, not everyone I get a chance to actually see in public or in person and meet in person. I had a chance to meet you briefly with Ramon's event. So it's good to have you back. Thanks for being on the show. I appreciate it.
No, thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Now, the big elephant in the room, people are saying marketing and strategic communications. And marketing means different things to different people. So before we get started, I'm going to obviously ask, what's your definition of marketing? What does it mean? What does it look like? Then we get into that strategic communication that you guys are so good at.
Yeah, so for me, marketing is really focused on what's driving your numbers and what's driving your profitability. And so the differentiator for me is strategic communication is actually, if you zoom out, marketing is a component of that. Public relations is a component of that. Your digital strategy is a component of that. But the strategic communications piece is really looking holistically at here's the whole picture of the goals. Here's how the goals tie back into the business goals. And here's how we're actually able to leverage all these different skill sets to show that we're honestly moving the bottom line.
Moving the bottom line, I love it. Now, there's a number of folks that are seeing and saying, "Wow, she's talking about starting and scaling your business." Shay, take a
Mhm.
moment if you can and have her slow down and say, "Wait a minute." Well, for those folks that are starting, and we have a number of folks in our audience, they're dualpreneurs, they work full time jobs, they're full time entrepreneurs, and they're like, "Whoa, I like this because it can be so overwhelming." So the question I have for you is for folks that are starting out, maybe been in business 3, 5 years, they're like, what's step one? What's step two? What's step three? If she could give it to me, Shay, what would that look like? What would you share with them?
Well, step one is know who you're talking to. I mean, if you don't know who you're talking to, you can't be intentional about finding them. And that's when you get people who are in all of these multi channel places, but they're not actually seeing any results because of that. So, one is know who you're talking to. But then once you know who you're talking to, you need to know where to reach them, right? You're not going to see the same audience on Facebook that you're going to see on TikTok, that you're going to see in your email marketing strategy, that you're going to see when you're actually sitting in a prospect meeting. And so, it's really important to figure out the best way to reach your target audience. And then really it all comes down to once you've identified who you're going after, you've identified where you're going to reach them, what's the messaging strategy that you need to resonate with them, and really developing whatever that looks like. For some people that's very focused on cause driven, for some people that's very focused on the product and the efficiency that it will bring. But I think if you're able to understand who you're talking to, where you're going to talk to them, and what you're going to say to really get them vested in whatever you're proposing, your solution, your product, your good, your service, that feels like a really strong first three steps.
And what do you say? And I know someone's raising their hand right now saying, Shay, it's kind of hard to put me in the box. What does she do with folks like me? Because I can talk to everybody, Shay. I mean, I know you've all heard the riches are in the niches, but you really have a hard time kind of narrowing it down because you think I can talk to everybody, Shay. What would you say to me? I mean, that really struggles with that because I don't want to leave anybody out. Because maybe you don't get that question, but I get it all the time. Shay, I can
Yeah.
you put them in front of me and I'm gonna talk to them. I'm like, I don't think it works that way. I'm a sales guy, but let's ask the marketing and strategic communication expert. So what do you say to the person that says it's kind of hard to put me in the box? I relate to everybody.
Yeah. Well, I think it's good to relate to everybody, but do you relate to everybody in a way that actually drives a behavior or an action? And so I think for those people, there are a couple things that come to mind. I mean, having a strong website and a strong digital presence is critical in 2024. You've got to have a place where you can point people back. The second piece is really having a strong marketing and sales funnel and knowing, today they're saying, and you might be able to correct me, but the most recent data I heard was 13 touch points before a prospect turns into an actual paying consumer. And so thinking about if you're going to have that conversation the first time, how are you going to continue to nurture that relationship and leverage the channels that you're utilizing and the messages that you've derived as key messaging, and be able to actually drive that behavioral outcome? Because talking is great. Like, we love talking, but if the talking isn't leading to a business outcome, then it's actually taking away from time where you could be more efficient on your business.
I love how you say relates to a business outcome. I love that at the end of the day. Um, We'll get to a background. I know some of you are like, Shay, who is this person? I'm listening right now to my iPod. Some of you are in the gym. Some of you are in the car. Some of you might be cooking right now and it's playing in the background. You're like, I like this, but who is this person? We'll get to that in a second. Don't worry about it. She'll tell you her backstory. But we're not going to leave the other folks out there and say, Shay, I'm ready to scale. Okay, there's revenue coming in. I've now hired one or two people. I've got some 1099s going on. I've got a little team here that's coming together, and we're ready to have the message and be on the same page. Or maybe the steps are the same. We're going to find out. But what is step 1, 2, and 3? Because we're really ready to scale and go deep, not wide, into our niche and be established as that go-to source. So, question. What do you say to the person that wants to scale, and what should they be looking at from a strategic communication perspective?
Yeah, well, this is where I have the most fun, because this is where you get to begin leveraging all of the I call them the toys in the sandbox, right? And so I think while it is very specific to what you're doing and your goals, I think generally speaking, scaling looks like creating omni-channel presences for your brand or your business so that you're able to reach various target audiences where they're at and providing them with consistent messaging. So it's essentially taking the step 1, 2, 3 formula, and instead of doing it for one audience, building it out in audience A through audience however many that you're relevant to. And I think for a lot of people, okay, that's vague, that's rhetorical. Like, put that theoretical comment into practice. Well, that looks like having a dedicated email marketing strategy where you're automating your emails, you're making yourself more efficient in turning prospects into converted customers via email marketing, you're tracking the growth of your email lists. That looks like consistent digital strategy. And for some, that's managing their own social media and posting consistently and leveraging all of the channels in the platform. For others, that's saying, actually, we just want to do some SEO optimization and boost our website. And so I think you start to get into a space in marketing where there's a lot you can do without spending money. There are a lot of strategic opportunities to partner and to do in kind and to trade and things like that. But if you're truly in the space where you're adding staff, you're adding capacity, you're ready to scale, then what that looks like is probably investing some money into your marketing strategy, but paying very close attention to your KPIs. If you are spending money in marketing, that money needs to be making you money. And so it's critical that you are watching. I recommend to my clients watching month over month, making decisions every quarter about how that spend is performing. And to be quite frank, I mean, if you're going to fail fast, fail smart, fail and use anything that you do in a beta test that didn't work and try it again, but alter everything about it. Because the more that you try and the more that you lead these things without a subject matter expert in the room, or before you're ready to bring on a marketing hire, you're able to leverage a lot of these tools and a lot of the failure using these tools to actually master a lot of knowledge very quickly.
I love it. Spot on. And they're wondering, who is this person? You know, what's her backstory, Shay Brown? What led her to doing what she's doing right now? So, you know, the question, who are you? What's the backstory that led you to what you're doing now?
Yeah, so I am an ambitious woman who doesn't like to be told no. I see a lot of opportunity in everything. And so I actually was a single mom at 17, and my son was born 15 weeks premature and is legally blind. And so, again, goes back to, I'm a very ambitious woman, and I don't like to be put into a box of things I can't do. And so my career, my education, raising my son while I was growing up, all those things to me were stepping outside of the boxes people were trying to put me in and finding new and different and energizing ways to do things. So about a week ago, I celebrated the first year of my company, Polish Strategic Communications, where I am.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
She made it
Thank you
past
for
the
that.
first year, ladies and gentlemen. She's already
Yeah,
in
we
another
made it.
category all by herself.
We made it. It's been so fun. Through my company, I'm getting to do a lot of work that's really focused on equity and access. economic development and community development as a piece of that, and then education. So I've got about 13 clients across 4 states that I am really hands on with, and we do all things marketing, communication, digital strategy, thought leadership. I mean, I really am in love with the work that I do, and I feel super, super fortunate to be able to use that love to actually make an impact in a positive way in my community. So that's who I am.
And you're doing an amazing job. And, you talked about a lot of moving pieces that you're responsible for. Take a moment for those folks that are listening and entrepreneurs, you all can lean in, whether you're new or experienced, and talk about the importance of copy. You talked about strategic communications and being able to say something, because for a number of entrepreneurs, sometimes that's the missing piece. Like, they want to look good, so someone can make them look good, but they still have to communicate, whether it's in writing and or them on a video. So if you can slow down, we'll talk about the importance of copy and how it can play a key role in their strategic communication. I know it's gonna sound obvious, but
Yeah.
oftentimes it's a missing piece.
Oh, you're spot on. Not only is it a missing piece, we're now operating in an AI driven world. And so we could scroll through LinkedIn right now and I could show you what ChatGPT wrote and what a human wrote. And what that means is that there's a question about authenticity. And that has huge repercussions on reputation, on brand, on loyalty, et cetera. So the key to copy is taking your time with it. And sometimes that means having 4 or 5 or 6 drafts that you go through so that you can really not only feel comfortable with the messages that you're using, but it just feels really aligned with the business experience. I think ChatGPT is a great tool for people who maybe are comfortable writing but don't consider themselves great writers or strong writers. It's a great starting point for you to plug in some things about your brand and start getting and developing some key messaging, but you can't replace the human touch in that. And so as you start working on copy, I, for a couple clients I've worked with, more individual clients than business clients, they were solopreneurs, but they started with Chat GPT and then they massaged that into a second draft. And then they vetted that draft with some of their mentors and some of the board of directors in their personal lives, just to see, does that language feel consistent with how I show up? Because you want your experience digitally, you want your customers experience in real life, you want your customers experience by phone to all feel consistent. And so having strong copy is really, really important, but that doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah, and I think it's spot on. I mean, of course, I'm biased. Outside of sales, I think the next number two thing you need, I know you're going to say marketing, because, we go together like brothers and sisters, peanut butter and jelly. But I love the part of communication that you said, because I think that's very, very important, because without the communication piece, nothing happens. I know they say without sales, nothing happens, but without the ability to speak, which is communication, what you're talking about, write, which is communication, or even doing the video, it's all about communication. And I would argue that it's, of course, I'm going to say sales is the oxygen to the business, but if we're the oxygen, the heart's got to be the ability to communicate. I know y'all want to look sexy and everything, but it's the communication.
Yeah.
You mentioned a lot of things you have to do as a business owner. I know it's a little bit off the topic, but I'm curious, what do you say to folks that got to juggle everything? They got a lot of balls in the air, and they're like, well, Shay, I am a dualpreneur. Let her know that. I've got a husband, or I've got a wife, or I've got a significant other. By the way, I'm like her. I'm a mom or a dad. And by the way, my kids have schedules, so I've got a lot of things pulling at me, by the way. Oh, I'm involved in my community. I've got a lot going on. How does she juggle everything? Like, how does ask about work-life balance, and how does she
Yeah.
juggle all those priorities? We'll get back to the business side, but I'm curious. How do you do
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. Well, first off, I see you because I am you. I mean, there were multiple times throughout my life I was working 3 jobs, taking 18 credits, and had a little one at home. And I had a lot of support. And so you can't replace support. If you don't have a village around you, find a way to cultivate that village, because community is so critically important. But I think the second piece is I am really intentional about project management. I use a lot of capacity planning tools to be able to look at how many hours I have in a week and how am I filling those, and am I creating space? Because for me as a professional, I need space to sit with things. The more that I sit and think and I'm able to just not have timed rushing me when I'm thinking about things, the better the result is. And so if you're not using some type of tool to help you manage all of the tasks or manage all of your time, you might try it. Some people it works really well, some people it doesn't. I happen to really love ClickUp because most of what I needed it for early on in my entrepreneurial journey was for task management, which meant that I had a free version I could use. But whether it's Monday or Asana, or you actually have like a hard copy planner, um, try and give yourself some project management. The second thing I'll also say is be really intentional about downtime. I think as dualpreneurs, we get into a space where we're constantly rushing, 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 and burnout and mental health, they're really, really important. And also you're not going to do, again, your best work when you're rushing in between things and don't have time to sit and think. So in real time, when I was experiencing this, it felt counterintuitive to actually slow down and stop when I had a million things I already needed to do. And yet by slowing down, pausing for a second, taking some breath that I needed, I was actually able to be more focused and produce more efficiently. But I highly recommend project management tools. I think they're incredibly important. There are a ton of tutorials. You don't have to figure it all out yourself, and you don't have to use all the bells and whistles. You can slate your tasks, you can estimate your time, and you can let those two things inform your calendar and how you're scheduling.
I love it. What's the backstory behind Polished Strategic Communications? I mean, how'd you come up with that brand? Or was that something you maybe just hired someone and they came up with it for you? But I'm curious on the backstory and the meaning of it.
Yeah, it's really interesting and not eloquent. So as I was going through this experience, so the nitty gritty is 2 days after my honeymoon, I launched the biggest project in my corporate career at 9 a.m. and at 4 p.m. my position was eliminated. And so Polish was really born accidentally and almost overnight. And the notion of polished came from, I believe that every single person, story, object can be bright and shiny with the right polishing. And for me in my life, I've felt a lot like the underdog who gets out the mud, right? Like I get out the mud and I dust myself off and we figure it out. And so I went with polished because I felt like it was at the very essence of everybody has the ability to shine. Everybody is deserving of space to shine. And if polished strategic communications can be a vessel to helping people find what burns brightly inside of them and showcasing that to the world, I mean, I can think of nothing more fulfilling for this company.
I love it. I love it. I'm always curious of the backstory. I love how you answered that. It leads us to a really good segment, by the way, that we have here. That's called Today is My January 1st. Now, for those folks who tune in every night at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I know you wait for this moment. You can't wait to say those magical words. Today is my January 1st. And for all the new folks that are welcome, we want to welcome you to the Happy Entrepreneur Show. Today is my January 1st represents a personal mantra we have here. It represents a fresh start. It represents a do-over. It means our past, no matter how dark and gloomy that past may be, or how bright and sunny that is, the past no longer equals the future. And so my question for Casey on the other side is really two parts. Number one, when you hear those words, today is my January 1st, what do you hear? And number two, what was another time in your life where there was a setback and how were you able to bounce back from it?
Yeah. I mean, when you said those words, I got goosebumps because I feel like today is my January 1st means that you get to be in control. And I really feel like in this season of my chapter, everything I'm doing and everything I'm building is really with the end goal of giving myself freedom of my time and of my energy and of, where I get to spend and invest, the second half of my, or hopefully second 2/3 of my life. And so I really love hearing that because it's just a reminder that every day there are opportunities waiting and you probably don't even know they're there. You've got to go outside and just see what doors open. But I would say my life has been, up until this point, it's been a lot of adversity. I mean, single mom, again, son with some really, really intentional special needs, navigating how I was going to be a provider and have a career where I could hopefully be fulfilled. It's been a lot of adversity, and I think in the last year, to be more specific, I didn't intentionally go into entrepreneurship. I went to entrepreneurship because I kind of fell off the cliff into it, and feel incredibly blessed to be in the space I am today. But the adversity right now really looks like, for me, the first year is going to be the easiest year of being an entrepreneur because anybody who knew of me or I had worked with in the past when I put my little flag up and said, hey, I'm polished is here, we're doing this, they came to me, which means year two, as I look to really grow and scale, not just the impact of the work, but the clients and the geography of the business. I'm tapping into markets where I'm not familiar. I don't have a 20-year history of working with whether it's media outlets or community partners or what have you. And so I think adversity is really important. I will say the number one thing that I attribute being able to navigate any adversity against or positively overcome is mindset. I think we so often take for granted the power of positive thinking and surrounding yourself with people who can breed into you an abundance mindset, because scarcity is scary. Scarcity is scary, especially when you're managing a full-time job and a side hustle, or trying to turn your side hustle into a main hustle, or raising kids for the first time, or just being a newlywed. And so I think for me, adversity really comes down to mindset. And also, I recently started working with Coach Anna Joe, who I know you know. She's a friend of the show. And I absolutely love working with a business coach. I think a business coach has been one of the best investments I've made in the last year, just to really keep myself accountable to how I'm handling adversity and maintaining all of the tools that I've taught myself how to use, maintaining the awareness of those in the thick of whatever adversity looks like, right? When the tornado hits, I have to remember I've been through this tornado before. I know what to do, instead of going back and defaulting into old mindsets and old habits.
I love it. And that leads to a question. You talk about mindset, and you talked about momentum, two M's right there. It leads to a question you may have heard before. And thanks for being transparent and so authentic on the show. I certainly appreciate that. And that is, you may have heard this before, consistency is the key. Consistency is the key. Consistency is the key. And having said that, what do people struggle with most? They struggle with consistency. So my question is, you're working with your entrepreneurs, is, what do you share with them being consistent? Because sometimes they get the mindset, they get the Holy Ghost and get excited. Well, I shouldn't say that, but I grew up in a Pentecostal church. Don't judge me, ladies and gentlemen. But they get the mindset right away and they're excited. And then they start the momentum. So they get a little bit of momentum, and then life happens. They get off track and on track and off track and on track. So my question is, what's one of your ideals or skills to stay consistent? And what do you share with your clients for them to be consistent so they just at least stay the course?
Well, so I like to noodle in even more. Like, what is it that's preventing you from being consistent? Is it a lack of energy? Is it a lack of resources? Is it you're unsure of what to do next? And so, really trying to get to the root cause. But I think the biggest thing that I coach people I work with, and even myself. I mean, I'm not past these lessons. Is when I have an idea or I have something that I call it marinating on. When I have something that's baking for me, and I can feel it building. What I try to do is I try to write it out on paper first. And then I mentioned my project management system. I go ahead and put everything in my project management system, and I put the due dates out at least 2 months. I give myself time to work through. Now, these are, again, low priority projects or projects I need to get to when I have time to get to. But I put them in my project management system with clear due dates. Then I go directly to my calendar, and once a week, every week until that 2 month deadline, I hold whatever window of time I need to work on this stuff. And so what I've done in that is I've already sketched out, here are the steps of the process. Here's the time that I need to actually execute on the steps. And here's the deadline when I'm going to check in and hold myself accountable to that. I think the additional piece to that is, if you have a business coach, if you're working with a mentor, if you have a business partner, having someone to help hold you accountable is really important. But I do think, like, consistency is a learned habit. I don't know if if you've read, or listeners have read, Mel Robbins' 5 second rule.
Love it.
But that's a really good, if you're looking for ways to start to shrink the time that you give yourself to say no, or to put something off, or to procrastinate. The 5 second rule is a great book to really get you into the right mindset of creating new habits that are just going to cause you to act a little faster and hopefully proactively, and see where that takes you.
Spot on. What do you do for fun? We're not out saving the world. You're not out helping people polish their communications. You're not out being this business booster person that's out there. Like, what do you do for fun these days?
Yeah. So I'm a big reader. My favorite weekend is a weekend sitting on my patio, or we have like a neighborhood pool. One day I will have a pool, but our neighborhood pool, just reading. I love to read. My Kindle is my favorite. I love to read. But my husband and I am newlywed
Well, you
also.
can't
We've
you
been
can't
married a
just leave us
year.
hanging. Say you love to read, and that tells us one of the books that you love to read. I
Oh,
mean, don't give us
okay.
Think and Grow Rich. We don't want that. Don't give us the Bible.
Okay.
Don't.
Okay.
But we're just curious. You got
Okay.
this Kindle. Is there one that stands out? You're like, hey, Shay,
Yeah.
this is one of my favorite to read.
I mean, it's a romance, but I really like Hotel Nantucket by Elin Hildebrand. She's
Ah.
fantastic. I'm currently reading The Couple in, I think it's 2B. It's on Reese Witherspoon's book club. I don't know. It's kind of trippy. So if you get scared, don't read that. But if you like
Romance.
a
Okay,
mystery,
that's good to
yeah,
know.
that's a good one. That's a good one. And then yeah, I try to once a month I try to read something from a business standpoint that might help me. But I've been having a summer of light reads. And then I like to travel. My husband and I, we like I said, we've been married a year. We're newlyweds still, and we enjoy traveling. Big family, so we are actually in July gearing up for Texas, and then in August, I moved my son to college in Maryland. So a little bit of travel and
Wow.
a little
That
bit of
sounds fun.
reading.
Congratulations. It's good to have
Thank you.
son you're going to college and so forth. A lot of fun. Mom used to
Yeah.
say, go, go, go. I'm sure you'll be visiting them all the time, but that's
Oh, I
kind of
will.
cool.
It is. It is.
Enjoy. That's amazing. As we come down the home stretch, a two-part question. Number one, what type of clients is your firm taking on now, if any? And number two, how can folks connect with you? How can they stay in this conversation over and beyond the time that you and I have right now?
Yeah. So, I mean, always taking on new clients because I struggle to say no to really fun, exciting, impactful things. And so, if you have a communications need, reach out, check out Polished Comms, COMMS.com. You can fill out a form there. And I also work with a lot of partners just because I am still figuring out what growth and scaling of my team looks like. And so, even if you're not in the Midwest or in Central Indiana, that's okay. I've got a network of people. So if you would like to continue getting nerdy, specifically on your niche area, hit me up there. But I also love talking. I love talking about what I do. I'm a communicator, so I'm not shy. So you can follow me on Instagram. It's Casey N. Cawthon, Cawthon. It's my maiden Instagram. Or you can follow Polished Comms on Instagram. You can find me on LinkedIn. I mean, I'm super findable. But I tell people when you find me, know what you need. Like, please know what the ask is. Please know what you want to talk about because I can't be helpful or leverage all the toys in the sandbox if I don't know what kind of castle you want to build. So it's really helpful for me when whether it's mentees or colleagues or people who just want to connect are really clear on the front end on like here's what would be super helpful, and that allows me to hopefully help them with whatever they're working on.
Ah, fantastic. Well, let me say two things. Number one, thank you so much for being on the Happy Entrepreneur Show. We appreciate it and can't wait to have you back.
Thank you. I appreciate this.
And thank you. Thank you to viewers. Thank you for tuning in, by the way, because without you, there is no show. So I never get tired of reminding you every night at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time how awesome you are, how you're amazing, how you're incredible. We love it when you hit the like button, but really hit the share button. Like, pay this message forward to another community. We really appreciate that. Thanks for showing up. Thanks for all you're doing. With that being said, my name, by the way, hasn't changed. It's still Che Brown, the Happy Entrepreneur. Make it a great day, everyone, and we'll make some good things happen. We connect again next time. Peace. Thanks, Casey. See you later,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Bye-bye.